when you're coming across an average person, a lay person, a customer, a client, a competitor, when they are both ignorant of their own strengths and values and simultaneously not attentive to the situation around them, they are a prime candidate for being converted into a human asset using the SAD-RAT system.
And SAD-RAT is, I got it here. It's spotting, assessing, developing, recruiting, agent handling, and termination. So there's a process to this. So I want to pick that apart a little bit, but I'm going to shove something in there with you on it. Because I was like, the reason I wanted you on is like, wow, he says some stuff I've not ever heard before. And I love little micro distinctions. And so one of them for me was this difference between perspective and perception. And again,
Absolutely.
this is all still to me in the same family of situational or self-awareness to some extent. Like understanding the difference between these two things is profound. I don't think I even ever really even thought about it until I was reading through your work. So let's go through that for a second. Perception and
Yes.
perspective.
Absolutely. So perception and perspective, just like you said, Ed, two words that oftentimes get used interchangeably.
Yeah. Yeah.
People don't stop to think about the difference between these two words. But just like we talked about situational awareness and self-awareness and the distinction between them, the same thing exists with perception and perspective. Perception is about how you view the world around you.
Mm-hmm.
So where you sit and you look out on your bedroom and you look out from your front window of your house, or you look behind the driver's wheel of a car, that's your perception of the world.
Mm-hmm.
You see a sunny day and you believe that a sunny day is a good day. And you look at the car in front of you and it looks like it's moving at the same speed, right? It looks like that the car is not moving at all because the distance between you and the car in front of you isn't increasing or decreasing. So that's your perception. That's your perception of the world.
Okay.
Perspective is when you step out of your own shoes and sit in somebody else's shoes and
Yep.
look at the world from their point of view.
Mm.
So when you step out of your shoes and pretend that you are the FedEx delivery guy for the day,
Yep.
what does that FedEx guy's day look like? Because from you sitting inside your house, you see the FedEx guy arrive, drop off a box, get back in the car and leave. That's it. That's it. That's the only time he crosses paths with you in your day. So you don't even think about him. You just think about whether your package got delivered.
Mm.
But in reality, that man or woman came from somewhere, is going somewhere next. You don't know if they couldn't find your box, if they dropped your box, if your box has been like under a stack of other boxes that were heavier, but that person knows all that. So
Mm.
what ends up happening is you gain an advantage over everybody around you when you stop thinking about your perception and start thinking about their perspective, because you're getting more informational data points about the situation,
Yep.
the current reality. Whereas the person who's trapped in their own perception, who's literally just sitting there thinking, when am I going to get out of this meeting? What's my next cup of coffee? Who's pinging me on my phone? That person is so trapped in their own world that they're losing all of the data, all of the information around them. It's just like you talked about the person who can't read the room, Ed. The
Yep.
person who can't read the room is the person trapped in their perception.
Brother, this is it. So here's everybody. Stay right here, everyone. What we're talking about right now, look, in personal development or persuasion or whatever you want to call it, self-improvement, there's very few new frontiers like work that can break open a new paradigm. And this is it. So, brother, I did not know I was going to have you on the show. Last week, I put a podcast out called Change the Lens. I'll tell you what it was, and then I want to unpack this with you a little bit, because this is, if someone can get their mind around this, it will literally change their life, as you know, right? So I was at my mom's house a couple years back, like a year ago, and I went to just take a picture of myself for social media, which as a middle-aged man is weird in and of itself, right? But so I go to take the picture. So here's the phone, right? I go to take the picture, except the lens was flipped and I could see my mom, not me. And this massive thing hit me. I switched the lens. I was not now seeing it my way. I was seeing my mom seeing me. And it made me very emotional, because I started to think about how much what her experience of her relationship with me has been for the last 52 years, 53 years. And how many times I've walked in and gave her a kiss and then talked to my dad for 3 hours and left, or didn't ask her how she's really doing, her childhood, her life, her emotion. And then I started applying it to almost every relationship I've got. I've changed the lens, to your point. And it made me realize I've actually always been pretty good at this, which is why I'm persuasive. I don't see everything from my own perspective. I want you to elaborate and give us maybe an application of this. I think this is like the great blind spot for most people who are wondering why I'm not moving forward and attracting the relationship I want in my life. Why am I not as persuasive as I should be? Why am I not closing the deals? Why when I walk in a boardroom? Because everything's their own lens. It's like this hyper lack of awareness or situational awareness because they have not had the ability to switch these two lenses, or to your point, perspective and perception. So how can someone apply this? Where would they apply it? How would they apply it?
I mean, you just rattled off a number of fantastic places to apply this concept. A job interview, a
Mhm.
client briefing, a pitch, a negotiation, when you're on a date, when you're trying to get a date, when you're considering how to propose to a partner that you've been serious with for a long time. These are all excellent places to apply the perception and perspective framework. In your words, Ed, to flip the lens.
Mhm.
Because if you can, in that moment, in just that 5, 10, 15-minute window of time, if you can stop and think, what does this moment feel like to them?
Yep.
You're going to have an advantage in being able to shape that moment even
Yes.
better in your best interests.
Yep. That's right.
Because you'll be able to think, oh, they probably want to hear me say these words. They probably want to see me act this way. They probably want to understand that this emergency situation is taken care of, whatever it might be. There's something they're looking for. And until you step out of your perception and into their perspective, you won't know what it is that they want. Now,
Mhm.
you also asked that, how do you go about actually changing this?
Yeah.
One of the easiest things you can do, and we do it at CIA all the time, is a simple, like, desktop paper exercise, right? Where you imagine anybody that you're close to in your life. You can imagine your child, you can imagine your boss, you can imagine your coworker, your business partner, your spouse, anybody at all. You take a piece of paper, you draw a line right down the middle of the piece of paper. On the left side of the paper, you write down all the things you try to be for that person. You try to be reliable, you try to be honest, you try to be fair, you try to be, timely, you try to be professional, whatever it is. On the other side of the paper, you have to do the exercise of saying, okay, if I put myself in my son's shoes, what does my son see from me?
Mhm.
I try to be patient, but you know what my son sees? He sees me lose my temper, right? He sees me ignore his questions. He sees me get frustrated with his mom. He sees me work late. He sees me wake up early. He sees me leave for a business trip some days without saying goodbye.
Mhm.
Well, what I find is that now on my side of the paper, what I think I'm doing is very different than what he sees me doing. And when you see that on a piece of paper, that's when it really starts to set in, like, oh, I can do this in real time also. And you have to see the problem before you can be aware of the problem in real time.
Mhm.
That's what's so hard. That's the intelligence piece of it.
Yeah, last night I was in this room I'm in right now with my son and his very good friend who I love like a second son. And they're at this age now, they're both in their 20s where they like want real feedback. They think, right? So just they're sitting about 30 feet from where I am right now. And I call them boys, but they're in their 20s. And both boys said, "Hey, what do you think would hold me back, Dad?" Or and he calls me Dad too, from winning. And I started to give them a real answer. And I started to watch the face of the other boy as I was doing it. And there was just a point in my feedback where I went over a line that was his comfort level for what he was hearing. But because I've switched the lens and I was actually listening to that conversation from his perspective, I saw when that line got moved, where I'd crossed it, and I was able to pivot and move it and bring him back up and build him back up again. This is a really important thing, you guys, in all of your relationships, from your business stuff to everything that you do. It also just takes the pressure off you from seeing things from their perspective. I think the work that Andrew's doing on this stuff is like super cutting edge. I totally support it. I love it. What I've been terrible at in my life, and I know there's no bulletproof way on this, but I've not been good at knowing when someone's deceiving me in my life. I've had a tendency, like many people, to project my own values onto the people that I interact with and just assume that they think and operate like I do. So I'm surprised I've gotten as far, Andrew, honestly, brother, in my life in business with an inability, frankly, to detect deception, lying, or even someone's not not great personal interest of mine. They don't have my personal interest.
CIA believes that all people are born with a spy secret superpower. For some people, that means they can win deals. For others, they can spot liars. Some can even seduce lovers. I built a free 3-minute test to help reveal to you exactly what your secret hidden superpower is. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, take the test, and start using your spy superpower to stay ahead of 99% of people.
How can someone, this would be huge, if you, how do you know when you're being deceived or you can be tipped off that potentially you are being lied to? How do you know that?
So I'm going to start by answering your question by telling you what is not reliable. Most of what you see online, most of what you see on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube about watching how people react in their face, what's known as micro expressions, most of that is absolute hogwash, just totally not realistic, not applicable to the everyday world. And here's why. It's not because those people are phonies or liars. Many of them are legitimately trained interrogators and special operators. Like, they are correct that micro expressions are a tool for lie deception or lie detection.
Okay.
What they are leaving out, though, is that you can only use those expressions if you are in a what's known as a constrained or confined environment. When you control the environment and the asset or the target sitting across from you is a captive audience, when you control their environment, that's the only time you can rely on micro expressions.
Got it.
When they can just walk away, when you're talking to somebody on the street or in the office or at the water cooler or at the coffee shop, if they have freedom of movement, all that micro expression stuff goes out the window because they don't feel under imminent threat. You have to put somebody in a confined environment where they feel the pressure of an imminent threat in order for their body to work against them like that.
So that doesn't work.
That doesn't work.
Okay.
So instead, what the agency teaches us to do in the field, because CIA operates outside of interrogation rooms, we operate on the street, we operate in the trenches, in the caves with terrorists. We need to deal with people on their home turf, which is really much more akin to everyday life.
Okay.
So what you're looking for lie detection or deception in everyday life is you're looking for what's known as a baseline and then a deviation from that baseline. So let me give you an example, right? You know your dentist. You see your dentist probably every 6 months or so. And you've gotten a cadence over the last 2 or 3 cleanings for what their mood generally looks like. You already know, you'd be able to tell if you sat down in the chair, your dentist came in and they were in a bad mood. Because it's a deviation from their baseline.
Okay.
You can apply the same thing to people who are trying to buy from you, people who are trying to sell to you, people who are trying to, gain equity in your business, or people who are trying to borrow or lend from you. You need to measure them over time to see what is baseline behavior. They normally twitch. They're normally late. They normally talk fast. They're normally nervous. They're normally quiet. Whatever normal baseline is, you'll see that over time. Even if it's just over 60 minutes or so, because you do need an extended period of time to get a baseline. 10 minutes, not enough time to get a baseline. Somebody can fake it for 10 minutes. It's hard for somebody to fake it for 60 minutes. That takes a lot of energy. So once you have a baseline, now you're looking for deviations from that baseline.
Okay.
So when you're talking to somebody, when you're buying a car and you're negotiating a price, and they've been smooth talking the whole time, and then you throw at them that you want 15% off the MSRP, and then they're like, the smooth talking ends, and they struggle to respond, and then they respond with something like, I don't think we can make that work. That's just too much. That's a lie, because it was a deviation from baseline. If right away they would have been like, ooh, I understand that 15% off is something you're looking for, but that is outside of the norm for our dealership. Chances are that's the truth, because it was very normal. It was within baseline. But when you see people deviate from baseline, that's the best way to tell whether or not they're lying to you in a moment.